Hello, today we are going to learn about Sambo. Sambo is a martial arts and combat sport that originated during the time of the Soviet Union in Russia. First, let's talk about its history. The Imperial Army during the time of the Russian dynasty did not have a unified system for unarmed combat. Because of this, when Lenin came into power, he called upon a group of experts to develop a combat system for the Red Army. These experts traveled around the world gathering information and techniques of the most well known fighting styles at the time, like judo, jiu-jitsu, boxing, wrestling, and many others. And they integrated these techniques with the ones that existed in the Soviet Union. This eventually developed into three styles of Sambo. First, we have Borba Sambo, which is the contact sport that is similar to wrestling and judo. It does not allow kicks, punches, or headbutts, only grappling. Second, we have Sambo for self defense, which is similar to judo, aikido, jujutsu, and traditional karate. Its main focus is of self defense. Lastly, we have combat sambo, which is the advanced form of this martial art. It includes the use of hand to hand combat where punches, kicks, headbutts are allowed, and also they train for the use of knives and as well as the use of weapons. Sambo is a martial art that originated during the time of the Soviet Union in Russia. Its development began in the 1920s by the Interior Ministry of the Soviet Union, also known as the NKVD. Alongside of the Red Army, it was intended, or its main purpose was to improve the combat abilities of their soldiers. This martial art integrated the techniques of wrestling, boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, and other foreign martial arts. The name translates to literally self-defense without weapons. It was developed by the independent efforts of Vasily Oshikov and Viktor Spiridonov, who were both officers in the Red Army. Now, let us talk about Vasily Oshikov. Vasily moved to Japan in 1905 at the end of the war between Russia and Japan. There, he became interested in judo and was admitted to the Kodokan Judo Institute in Tokyo. He learned from the very founder of judo himself, Jigoro Kano, where he became the first Russian and the third European in history to earn a black belt in judo. When he returned to Russia in 1914, he founded a school of judo. Then, when the Soviet Union was formed, he became an officer and helped create the martial art that is better suited for combat, later known as Sambo. Sadly, during the time of the Great Purge, he was accused of being a Japanese spy, and in 1937 he was sentenced to death and was executed. Later, in 1957, he was found innocent of any wrongdoing and pardoned. Now, let's talk about Victor Spiridonov. Victor's fighting style background was of different indigenous martial arts from various regions in Russia. He as well had an interest in Japanese jiu-jitsu. During World War I, he was injured in his left arm, and because of this, he specialized in technique and movement over strength. He created a softer style that could be used by smaller, weaker practitioners and, of course, wounded soldiers and secret agents. He was hired by the Interior Ministry and KVD as a combat investigator and traveled to Mongolia and China to learn about their fighting styles. The information and techniques gathered by these two investigators eventually merged, and in 1938, Sambo was officially born. Sambo's ultimate goal is to stop an armed or unarmed opponent in the least time possible. It is a very brutal sport, known for being fast paced and explosive. It is taught in Russia to police, guards, secret police, military, and even psychiatric staff. It has similar characteristics to other forms of martial arts such as MMA and BJJ. MMA being mixed martial arts and BJJ being Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. But its main focus is to end a combat situation as quick as possible. That's why it is feared all around the world. Later on, after being recognized internationally as a combat sport, the Russian military by the 1970s developed what would be the next stage in hand to hand combat. This was officially implemented by the military as the official fighting style of the Russian armed forces. This fighting style came to be known as ARB, which translates to Army Hand to Hand Combat. It incorporated all of the past techniques passed down by Sambo experts in different disciplines from around the world. It is intended to be used only in a combat situation. The sport itself is relatively new and is currently evolving, and it is even more brutal and efficient than Sambo. Its origins came from martial art enthusiasts and practitioners in the military that gathered once a year to compete amongst themselves. It was later introduced to the Russian military as its official fighting style and combat system.